You step into the creaking corridor of a castle that doesn't belong in your world. Not really. Its stones shift when you're not looking. Its turrets lean like listening ears. The air here smells of old parchment, forgotten rain, and the faintest wisp of wood smoke. There's a castle that walks, not on legs, but on secrets. One that appears to those who don't seek it, and disappears the moment they try to explain. They say you probably shouldn't whisper its name at midnight, or knock twice on any door you didn't see there yesterday. The walls remember, the floors judge, and the mirrors watch. So, before you settle in, tap that like button if you love unraveling mysteries, but only if these tales truly enchant you. And tell me, what's your favorite mythical creature or the ghost story whispered in your hometown? Now lower the lights, let the shadows stretch, and let's wander into the whispers of the unseen together. You turn down the corridor. The door behind you clicks shut, though you don't remember hearing it open. Ahead, only hallway, and beyond that, well, you've heard the rumors. You step forward, the floorboards groaning beneath your feet, not in protest, but in welcome. The hallway curves as if it's listening in on your thoughts. A painting tilts itself to eye level. The eyes in it blink, just once. This castle has stories stitched into its seams. Folklorists argue over whether castles like this ever existed. Some say it's all Diana Wynne Jones's imagination. Others insist she borrowed from older tales. The Welsh Dianos, houses built overnight by magic and defiance, or the Slavic Baba Yaga's hut, striding on chicken legs across endless woods, stubbornly unbothered by human reason. But this castle is different. It doesn't simply move, it wanders. And now it's letting you in. You round the corner and see a door ajar. Light flickers from inside, orange, steady, and pulsing like a heart. You nudge it open and enter the hearth room. At the center is a fire that stares back. About time, it mutters. This is Calcifer. He's not just fire. He's a fallen star, bound by a contract too ancient and too strange to unravel easily. The kind of magic no one writes down anymore, because it's too alive to pin to a page. The hearth crackles. In one obscure tale from the fringes of Brittany, fire spirits were believed to be the final wish of comets that never touched Earth. They'd linger in chimneys, whispering riddles into pots of soup. Some said you could trap one in a ring of salt and ask it a single question. Others warned doing so would cost you your name. Historians still argue whether Calcifer is inspired by Celtic myths of Awen, or simply the fever dream of a storyteller who once saw a star fall and wondered what it wanted. You sit beside the hearth. The warmth isn't just physical, it's something older, a memory of safety you never quite had. Don't get comfortable, Calcifer grumbles, puffing smoke. He's coming. You don't have to ask who. Footsteps echo above. The ceiling creaks. A coat flutters past a hallway where wind should never blow. The castle exhales, and somewhere upstairs Howl stirs in his sleep. You follow the smell of rosewater and rust. The scent leads you past a crooked staircase that turns back on itself like a question with no answer. You count the steps out of habit. There are 13 going up, then suddenly 9 going down. The castle changes its mind about geometry often. As you climb, your fingers brush a velvet tapestry woven with stars. Not embroidered stars, actual ones. They shimmer faintly as though stitched from sky. One twinkles back. You blink. It doesn't. Howl's presence is everywhere, like the ghost of perfume in a room no one's entered in days. The walls are hung with cloaks, hats, shoes that never get dusty. There's no dust in Howl's castle, just crumbs of forgotten magic, still warm. You pass a door painted black with 7 locks, none of which match. A sign hangs from a chain not yours. You consider ignoring it. Then the doorknob growls. You keep walking. In the landing ahead, you find a mirror. It reflects you almost. Your coat is missing in the reflection, and your eyes are a little too still. The mirror smiles, just slightly. You hurry on. next room isn't a room. It's a pocket of sky folded into the castle's ribs, a floating study held up by clouds and whimsy. Bookshelves spiral like conch shells, and quills scribble notes in the air by themselves. And there, in a robe made of twilight and sleeplessness, is Howl. He doesn't look up right away. He's arguing with a book. No, that spell is not for beginners. He snaps, slamming it shut. The book huffs, then vanishes in a puff of lavender smoke. He finally sees you. You're early, he says, brushing a feather from his hair. Or maybe I'm late. Hard to tell when time's afraid of your front door. You don't answer. You're too busy noticing the way the floor beneath him doesn't quite connect to the ground. He's hovering, maybe 2 inches off. He probably doesn't know. You ask him, softly, is this castle alive? He tilts his head. Oh yes, but it's shy. There's a long pause. Then he adds, it likes you. The castle shivers in agreement. A window opens by itself to let in moonlight. Hal gestures to a seat, and as you lower yourself, the chair shifts to fit you, not comfortably, perfectly, as if it knew your spine before you did. You've stepped into a place that doesn't play fair, he says, hands steepled. There's no map, only memories, and those aren't always yours. From a drawer, he pulls out a faded journal, its cover weathered like driftwood. The pages are filled with notes in a dozen hands, some spidery, others blocky and childlike. None are dated. This, he explains, is the castle's logbook. Every traveler, every visitor, every door it's ever opened. But you flip through it. There's a tale from a 16th century healer who claimed the castle helped her escape witch hunters. Another from a Mongolian stargazer who found it while tracking a comet. One anonymous entry just says, don't eat the soup. It's not soup. And then your name. You blink. Wait, how? The castle writes what will be. Howl says, sometimes before it happens. You feel the walls lean in, listening. You point to another entry, one barely legible. I met the alchemist. He was taller than I expected. Hungrier too. You ask, is that you? When Howl shrugs, theatrical. Some say the real Howl was an alchemist who once turned gold into guilt. Others say I'm just a boy who borrowed too much magic and never gave it back. He leans forward, shadows pooling in his collarbones. Truth is, I'm whatever the castle needs me to be. That's when you notice the room is subtly changing. The books rearrange themselves. The windows stretch taller. Howl's reflection in the inkwell has horns. This place adapts, not just to magic, but to belief. One obscure legend tells of a Scottish druid who dreamed of a castle that floated between clouds. When he awoke, he walked until he found it, or until it found him. It only appeared to those whose dreams were stronger than their fears. His name was lost, but some say he became the blueprint for Howl. Wild, strange, uncatchable. Historians, of course, bicker about it. One scholar claims Howl is a literary remix of the folkloric weather witch, figures known to summon tempests when spurned. Another swears he's based on a real 17th century Welsh mage who vanished after writing a treatise on soul binding. But the castle never confirms or denies. It simply is. You rise from the chair, and it sighs as if you've ended a lifelong friendship. Howl lifts a finger. One last thing. He points to a door behind him. Round, golden, humming slightly. That one opens to a place you're not ready for. You ask, where does it lead? He grins. It's not reassuring. The truth, or a version of it. You glance at the door. It pulses once, like a heartbeat. You don't touch it. Not yet. You leave the floating study behind, stepping through a hallway that hums softly to itself. The castle seems amused by your questions, feeding you corridors that fold like origami, angles that shouldn't work but do, windows that look out on oceans or deserts, depending on your blink. A faint scent of lemon cake trails past, then ink, then gunpowder. The castle remembers every visitor who left a trace, and now it's letting you sample their memories like aromas from a dream buffet. Down the hall, you find a staircase made entirely of books. You hesitate. but they hold your weight softly, like they know stories are meant to carry people. One book flutters open under your foot and whispers, "Don't trust the clocks." You make a note of that. At the top, the air sharpens. You're higher in the castle now, where magic thins and time runs stranger. Rooms up here are reserved for those who've made bargains, or broken them. The door ahead is deep green, etched with silver ivy. You push it open and find a conservatory of impossible plants. Vines curl lazily toward light that has no source. A tree bears fruit in the shape of keys. Mushrooms glow with soft laughter. Something in the corner burps and then apologizes. And there in the center, a young woman stirring a bowl of soup that's trying not to be soup, Sophie. She looks up, startled. "Oh, you're not the delivery ghost." Then she smiles and motions you closer. You watch as she mutters into the pot. The soup gurgles, shifts color, then shudders itself into stew. "Better," she says to it, "but you're still rude." Sophie doesn't sparkle with magic like Howl. Her power is subtler, quieter. But the castle leans toward her as if she's its anchor. She hands you a spoon. It won't bite anymore. It tastes like autumn, like safety, like a home you've never lived in but missed all your life. "You're wondering how I got here," she says, not asking. You nod. "Once I was cursed to be old. I thought it was the worst thing. Turned out it freed me. Made people ignore me and let me find out who I really was." She wipes her hands on a dishcloth that giggles when squeezed. "Hal found me, of course. But I found myself first. That's the real magic." She gestures to a cupboard with 4 identical doors. "One of these leads to my past, one to my future, one to the broom closet, and one to where the Witch of the Waste sleeps." You reach for the second door. She stops you gently. "That one waits. For now, listen." And she tells you the story of the castle's construction, not its wood and stone, but its heart. Long ago, or maybe later this week, depending on who's counting, a group of forgotten witches built a house from grief. They'd each lost something: a lover, a homeland, a voice. They poured their sorrows into walls and their hopes into hinges. The house wept for them and walked for them. Some say it became this castle. Others say this is only one version of it, spun off like a dream seed. There's a Welsh tale that speaks of the crooked hearth, a house that wandered mountains looking for the stars its builder once named. Some folklorists insist this is where Calcifer's story diverges from human memory. He wasn't captured, they argue, but volunteered, seeking warmth to replace the sky. The debate rages on in magical history circles. Some claim Sophie represents a Jungian archetype, the mundane transformed by power. Others say she's the only real person in the entire tale, and the rest is a spell cast by her to survive heartbreak. She shrugs when you ask. Sometimes it's easier not to know. The soup doesn't ask where the salt came from. A vine wraps itself around your wrist, gently tugging you toward the next room. Sophie waves. "Mind the scarecrow?" Oh, you blink, scarecrow. The door slams behind you before she can answer. You're in a garden now, one that shouldn't exist this high up. The sky is the color of old postcards. Flowers bloom in constellations. A teapot sits under a rose bush, steaming happily. Then you see him, a scarecrow with one boot, a crooked smile, and eyes that flicker with memory. He bows, awkwardly, woodenly, but politely. Turnip head. He gestures for you to follow. You do. He limps through the garden, passing trees that shed feathers instead of leaves. As you walk, you hear the whisper of a forgotten tale. There was once a prince turned to wood not by curse, but by choice. He wished to listen without being heard, to watch the world without being seen. Some say he fell in love with the wind and stayed still so he could always feel it. Turnip head stops at a sundial shaped like a pocket watch. Time here is clearly broken. He points to it, then to the sky, then shrugs. You ask him, "Are you still under a spell?" His head tilts, then he nods, once slowly. Perhaps it's not magic holding him now, but memory. He offers you a flower with petals like parchment. It writes on itself, You're doing better than you think. You take it. The castle shifts again, and you're swept onward, no longer walking, just moving, as if the floor has become a current, and you're a leaf in its flow. The scarecrow watches you go unmoving, still listening. You drift into darkness, not the absence of light, but the kind of twilight that wraps you in velvet and secrets. The castle has turned again. You feel it in your stomach, like a dream folding in on itself. The walls breathe slower here. The air is damp with fog that shouldn't exist indoors. You're in the corridor of doors. Each one stands unique. One made of sea glass, another carved entirely from driftwood, a third glowing faintly from within like it's harboring a sleeping moon. You reach for the nearest handle, but before your fingers can close around it, a voice stops you. Not that one. It bites. You glance down. A small creature no taller than your knees adjusts its monocle and brushes lint off its coat. It has the ears of a rabbit, the tail of a fox, and the accent of an exhausted librarian. First time, it asks. You nod, because of course you do. Then follow me. I'll take you to the door that remembers. You follow. This hallway isn't about architecture, it's about memory. Every door leads not to a room, but to a story the castle refuses to forget. Your guide leads you to a door made of patchwork, scraps of letters, locks of hair, splinters of bone. It opens before you touch it. Inside, silence. Dust hangs like snowflakes, and there, in the center, is a table with a tea set for 4, 3 cups full, 1 overturned. Around it sit mannequins dressed as if they've been frozen mid-conversation. One smiles, one cries, one leans too close. Your guide whispers, "This is the Witch of the Wast's parlor," or a version of it. No one knows the witch's true origin. Some say she was once a queen of forgotten lands. Others believe she's the embodiment of entropy, aging everything she touches. There's a Russian folktale of a woman who aged a village in one night because they laughed at her crooked hat. In this room, time has collapsed. The air tastes of lavender and loss. You notice a framed portrait above the hearth. It's cracked. The woman in it looks vaguely like Sophie, but with eyes like dying stars. Some historians think the witch was never one person. Your guide says she's a composite of every fear of female power written by men with quills too fragile to tell the truth. A clock ticks backwards. You move to leave. The mannequins twitch in your peripheral vision, but when you turn, they're still. The castle doesn't stop you this time. The door closes softly behind you. Back in the hallway, your guide sighs. I really should charge more for this. You're about to ask how many doors exist when one opens by itself. From within comes music, waltzing, lilting, spun from silver thread and spun sugar. You're drawn toward it helpless. You step through. It's a ballroom. Empty, except for a single pair dancing Howl. And not Sophie. She's faceless but familiar, dressed in shadow and candlelight. She glides as if floating. Howl moves with her effortlessly, lost in rhythm. You aren't supposed to be here. The music halts. She vanishes like mist burned by dawn. Howl looks up and sees you. He smirks. Curious thing, aren't you? You stammer something about doors. He steps down from the dais, boots echoing against marble that shimmers like moonlight on snow. This castle wasn't built to keep things in, he says. It was made to hide from the world. He gestures upward. The ballroom ceiling rolls open like a scroll, revealing a starless sky that swirls like wet ink. Sometimes, he continues, the stars forget to shine. When they do, I dance with my regrets. That one had very good taste in books. A joke, soft and sad. There's a legend, obscure, disputed, that Howl was once a real man, an alchemist in 1600s Prague. He was said to have tried to bottle light and charm death into forgetting him. His journals vanished the day the city burned. Some claim they reappeared centuries later in a traveling shop that only opens during eclipses. Scholars argue whether this myth inspired Jones's Howl or vice versa, but many agree the real mystery is the castle itself. It appears in Welsh coastal tales, Japanese hilltop ghost stories, even 1930s Argentine dream journals. You ask Howl what's real. He grins. What a boring question. He walks past you and opens a panel in the wall. Behind it, a spiral staircase that corkscrews into shadow. He pauses. Follow if you dare, or return to the garden and flirt with the scarecrow again. You follow. The staircase narrows. Lights flicker on and off. You hear echoes, some your own, some not. At the bottom, a door opens into a room made of windows. Thousands of them. Each shows a different scene. A child learning to fly with paper wings. A fox stealing time from a grandfather clock. Sophie brushing stardust from her hair. Calcifer asleep in a teacup. Howl doesn't speak. He simply places a hand on one pane. It shows you, standing at the edge of this very room, but different. Older, wiser, sadder, or maybe happier. The reflection shifts when you blink. This place shows what the castle thinks of you. Howl says. You ask what it means. He shrugs. Depends on what you do next. Then he's gone, just a flicker between one frame and the next. The room of windows breathes around you, and the castle waits to see what you choose. You don't choose a direction. The castle chooses it for you. The window room blinks once, and the pane behind you swings open like a door. You're swept into a new corridor that smells of rain on stone and memories that never quite belonged to you. The walls here are narrower, and your footsteps echo with someone else's rhythm. You emerge into a study that looks like it was stitched together from the dreams of every eccentric wizard who ever lived. The books float slightly. The furniture sighs when touched. A telescope perches at an impossible angle, trained not on the sky, but on a jar of what appears to be weeping stars. And there, at the heart of it all, is a desk, cluttered, chaotic, very much alive. Mind the quills, comes a voice from behind a stack of collapsing maps. They bite when startled. A long-fingered hand reaches out and steadies the pile. You half expect to see Howl again, but the man who steps forward wears an entirely different kind of madness. Ruffled collar, mismatched boots, and spectacles perched at the tip of a nose that clearly broke an alliance with symmetry long ago. Pendrick, he says, holding out a hand dusted with ink. Archivist of arcane recollections, imagined and otherwise. You shake it, he studies you. You don't belong here yet, but that's not unusual. He gestures to the shelves around him. These, he says, are the castle's records. Not of what happened, but what might have. Every unspoken wish, every unsent letter, every spell begun but abandoned halfway through dinner. He plucks a book from the air. The cover reads Howl's regret when 3D9E, the letter he burned. He flips it open, reads a single line, and laughs. Poetic, but ridiculous. He wasn't that tall. Pendrick offers you a seat, which shuffles eagerly under you as you sit. The castle likes you, it seems. Or at least, it's interested. He opens another book, this one with no title, and shows you a picture. It's Sophie, or a version of her younger, her eyes wide with the kind of curiosity that often leads to mischief or miracles. This, he says, is the version of her that never met Howl. She became a hat maker of great repute, died rich. Boring, really? You ask him how these stories end. He smiles sadly. They don't. Not here. The castle keeps them alive like fireflies in jars. In some Eastern European legends, especially in old Carpathian folk tales, there were stories of the House of Forgotten Tomorrows, a place where unwritten futures fluttered in cobwebbed halls, guarded by beings who remembered every dream never chased. Some versions place it deep in the Transylvanian forests. Others claim it can only be found by children who fall asleep while crying. Historians debate whether Jones drew inspiration from these tales. A few argue the similarity is coincidence, but some point to an obscure interview where she mentioned castles that remember the lives we never had. No one's found the full quote. You run a hand across the spines of the books. One pulses gently beneath your fingers. It hums. Yours, Pendrick says, but don't read too far ahead. You ask what would happen if you did. He smiles. Well, you'd spoil the ending, and the castle hates spoilers. He snaps the book shut and it vanishes in a puff of violet smoke. The floor rumbles. A bell chimes somewhere far above. Pendrick tilts his head. That's your cue. You rise, and so does your chair, twirling slightly before tucking itself back beneath the desk. Pendrick nods to a trapdoor in the floor. This way leads to the heart. You ask of the castle. No, he says. Of the story. Then he winks and disappears into a stack of newspapers from 1893. You open the trapdoor. Below, a spiral slide shimmering with ink and stardust. You don't hesitate. The ride down is faster than falling but gentler than flight. You pass constellations, moments, faces you don't recognize but somehow miss. Then darkness, then light. You land on moss. It glows faintly beneath your feet. You're in a cavern, no, a cathedral, but natural, formed of stone and time and breath. The walls pulse faintly. At the center stands a pillar of crystal, and within it, a beating heart, the castle's. You approach. Unsure whether you're dreaming or trespassing, the heart pulses once, then again, and you hear her voice. Sophie, not the one from before, but a memory maybe, or a ghost, or just the castle playing tricks. You must be gentle, she says. It's built from promises. You place a hand on the crystal. Warmth floods you. Not just physical warmth, but something deeper. Memories you never lived, songs you never heard, regrets that don't belong to you but feel real just the same. You see Howl, younger, alone, lost in a forest made of mirrors, whispering names he hadn't yet learned to love. You see the scarecrow prince, his smile trembling before it forms. You see Calcifer falling, burning, laughing, wishing. Then it all fades, the crystal dims. Your reflection stares back from its surface, not older, not wiser, just you, and the castle watching. The moss beneath your feet gives one last warm sigh before vanishing into floorboards. Oak this time, polished but uneven, as if the wood grew here rather than being laid. You blink, and the cathedral of crystal is gone, replaced by a wide hallway filled with wind chimes and doorways. Each door is a contradiction, one made of clouds, another of rusted iron dripping honey. One door is open just a sliver, revealing a forest lit by fireflies that dance to a rhythm older than music. But your attention's pulled elsewhere by the sound of sobbing, faint, high up, childlike. You follow it, past the sound of laughter echoing backward, and the faint smell of boiled cabbage, around a bend, and then up a twisting staircase that curls like a seashell. You count the steps, 27, then 28, then 27, wait. You stop counting. The steps continue. At last, you arrive at an attic room. A sign hangs on the door. Nano Gerel Seloud, Ixipti Sapici, Summatamest. You push the door open. It creaks like a memory you've been trying not to remember. Inside, it's dim and full of moving shadows, except they're not cast by anything. They're just moving. A tangle of black feathers rustles from one corner. A tattered blanket is draped over a nest of pillows. Books are piled high, forming uneven towers that sway slightly, as if breathing, and in the middle, curled into a ball of fluttering sleeves and wild blonde hair, is Howl. He's not majestic, not mysterious, just human, maybe too human. His sobs are the quiet kind, the kind that leak out after you've tried to hold them in all day. You hesitate at the threshold, unsure if this is a moment you're meant to see. But then he speaks. I didn't mean to turn his feet into tree roots. You blink. He only asked for a spell to run faster. Hal murmurs, voice muffled in a pillow, and now he grows leaves in his sleep. You step closer. He notices you. Finally, and doesn't flinch. Doesn't pretend he wasn't crying. That somehow feels more intimate than if he had. Sometimes I forget, he says. That magic isn't always kind. He waves a hand, and one of the books opens midair. It shows an illustration of a wizard surrounded by glowing villagers, each thanking him for healing or happiness or luck. Propaganda, Hal mutters. They never show the ones who wander away half frog, half Hartach. You sit beside him. The floorboard beneath you sighs. From one of the piles, a little puff of black feathers hops forward. It's a bird, but not quite. Its beak is too soft and its eyes are too knowing. Hal strokes its head. Thoughts I plucked out years ago, he says. Didn't want them anymore, so I gave them wings. They keep coming back. You ask if he ever regrets it. Only when they land, he replies. There's a legend, little known, buried in a Catalan grimoire, that wizards who pluck out parts of their soul too often end up with corvimentia, a condition where regrets take avian form and nest inside the chest cavity. The cure, unknown, possibly hugs, possibly harp music. Some scholars say Jones likely read this tale during her Oxford years. Others argue it's a myth invented by readers to explain Howl's odd flock. The debate continues, especially among fans who collect feathered figurines claiming to be corvimentia souls. Howl stands, brushing feathers from his robe. Come on, he says. You haven't seen the worst of it yet. You follow him through a mirror, literally. It ripples like water as he steps through, and you plunge in after. On the other side, a room built entirely of stairs. They go up, they go down. Some go sideways. A few fold in on themselves like origami. Howl leaps from one to another with casual defiance of gravity. You scramble after, slipping once, saved only by a stair that grows an extra step beneath your foot at the last second. Architectural chaos, Howl explains, built to confuse regret. Also, nosy neighbors. You land beside him on a platform of glass, suspended above nothing, or perhaps everything. The void swirls with half-formed thoughts and echoes of stories untold. There's a door at the far end, painted like a child's drawing, a sun, a house, 2 stick figures holding hands. Hal hesitates. This was hers, he says, a long time ago. He doesn't say her name, but you know he means Sophie. He touches the doorknob but doesn't turn it. She left it unlocked, he says, just in case. You ask why he doesn't go in. I'm afraid I'll find she never came back. That sentence sits between you both like a sleeping dragon. One obscure tale from the Scottish Highlands tells of the Echofold rooms, chambers found in castles long since abandoned, where doors hold entire memories behind them. Open the wrong one, and you relive the worst goodbye of your life. Some versions claim wizards built them as tests. Others say they simply happen when grief grows thick enough. Did Jones know of them? Maybe, maybe not. Hal finally steps away. Not today, he murmurs. He leads you down a set of velvet stairs that only appear when you hum a lullaby. You don't remember knowing the tune, but your mouth moves anyway. The steps unfold. At the bottom is a door. Simple, plain, wooden. He gestures to it. This one's yours, he says. I don't know what's behind it. That's kind of the point. You reach for the handle. Behind you, Hal speaks again. If you see her, he says quietly, tell her I kept the kettle warm. You open the door and step through. You expect to fall or float or transform, but when the door swings shut behind you, nothing happens, at least not outwardly. You're standing in a room that looks almost normal. 4 walls, a ceiling, a carpet worn in the center where countless feet have paced. There's a writing desk cluttered with parchment, feathers, and an ink bottle that tips over in slow motion but never spills. A teacup that steams endlessly, and shelves, hundreds of them, lining the walls, each shelf filled not with books but with keys. Brass keys, silver keys, keys made of bone. One that hums when you look at it too long. Each key is labeled in a scrawling hand. Tuesday morning memory, spilled tea, second smile, unspoken apology. V3, door to nowhere but smells like lilac. Calcifer's joke never repeat. Sophie's second goodbye, heart. Locks for emergencies only. You reach out, and the labels whisper when your fingers brush them. The voices are faint, familiar, maybe even yours in a different tense. One of the oldest keys, blackened, chipped, slightly warm, lures your attention. It's labeled, original door. You don't pick it up, not yet. Behind you, the walls shimmer, shifting like memory does when you try to hold onto it too hard. This isn't a storage room, it's a mind, Hal's, maybe, or yours, or the castle's. At this point, those lines are blurred. There's a folk tale from the Norwegian hinterlands about the Ene Clerum, the K-rooms, that appear in magical houses just once, usually when someone is on the brink of transformation. They're not for unlocking doors, but truths. The keys don't fit anything in the world, only the self. In most versions of the tale, you can only take one. In some, you're not meant to take any. You walk slowly along the shelves, your footsteps muffled by carpet and memory. One key glows faintly as you pass, door to the future left ajar. Another buzzes like static. Voice I never used. You laugh quietly at one labeled, "Spare Calcifer, don't tell him." But it's the unmarked key, hanging all alone at eye level, that you finally touch. As soon as you do, the room vanishes. Now you're standing in a garden, but not just any garden, it's floating. The sky is not quite blue, not quite anything. It pulses like breath. The grass is glass. Trees hum lullabies you don't know the words to. Giant lily pads drift through the air, casting long, slow-moving shadows. Calcifer floats beside you now, wearing an apron and flipping a ghostly pancake on a pan made of starlight. Howl's heart isn't the only one hidden in this place. He mutters. He flips the pancake again. You ask whose garden this is. Calcifer snorts. All of ours, none of ours. You're in the between bloom. You raise an eyebrow. It's where stories grow before they get told, he explains. Not safe to linger, but good for clarity. In the center of the garden is a statue, moss covered, cracked. It looks like you, only older, maybe wiser, maybe not. The plaque reads, "For the one who listened." You blink, bit dramatic. "Don't you think?" Calcifer says, setting his pancake down on a floating tray of air. But then again, so's this whole castle. He fades out, leaving only embers on the breeze. You wander forward, and beneath your feet, the glass grass sings with every step. There's an old Japanese tale, rare, only passed down in a few regions, about a garden said to exist between this life and the next. Those who found it were allowed one question, answered not in words but in vision. The Hanashikage it was called, the shadow bloom. Some say it was guarded by a talking fire. Others insist only dreamers could enter, and only by accident. Scholars debate whether the myth had any influence on the creation of the castle's more surreal spaces. Fans of Jones point to her travels in Japan and the Erie, fleeting scenes in Castle in the Air as circumstantial proof. Others argue it's pure coincidence, a shared dream. Perhaps. The statue begins to hum. You step closer and see it's not stone at all. It's made of folded paper. Thousands of notes scribbled and twisted into the shape of your face. You pluck one loose. It reads, "You are not lost, just changing." Another reads, "The castle moves because you do." You sit beside the statue, and the shadows stretch toward dusk. The castle is always changing, you realize. Not because it's fickle, but because everyone inside it is Howl, Calcifer, Sophie, even the doors, especially the doors. There's no such thing as stillness here. Even silence rearranges itself. The wind carries a familiar scent, rain on parchment, the same as when you arrived. Somewhere behind you, a door swings open. It doesn't creak, it invites. You rise, brushing phantom grass from your lap. As you walk toward it, the sky flickers once, like a page turning in a forgotten book. You pass through the doorway and find yourself somewhere else entirely. You emerge into a corridor that loops in on itself like a curled ribbon. The walls are paneled in dark wood, but none of the grains match. One plank whispers in German, another in broken Latin. One just laughs quietly whenever you look away. The corridor doesn't stay still. You walk 5 steps and the carpet shifts pattern, floral to geometric to stars. A grandfather clock passes you going the other way, muttering the word late in 4 different languages. Time in this part of the castle is a rumor. You pause at a window, though you don't remember the corridor having one a moment ago. Outside, the sky is full of stairs, winding up into clouds shaped like teacups. On one of the steps, a small girl chases a paper bird that refuses to land. She waves at you. You wave back, and she's gone. You continue walking. Doors line this passage, each slightly ajar. One releases the scent of cinnamon and storm water. Another hums with the distant sound of violins. A third opens just wide enough for you to glimpse yourself on the other side, but older, sadder, dressed in colors you've never owned. You don't open that one. The door you finally stop at has no handle, just a brass plate that reads, "Do not disturb, unless you remember." You knock once. The door groans open like it hasn't moved in years. Inside is a library. Of course it is. Not a neat one. Not even a especially large one, but a living one. Books flap from shelf to shelf like nervous birds. Scrolls scurry across the floor, squeaking. A map stretches itself lazily along a table before curling back up into a cylinder, snoring gently. And seated in the middle, on a throne made of stacked encyclopedias, is the Witch of the Waste, but not the one you expected. This witch is younger, sharper, more curious than cruel. Her eyes are galaxies, but the dusty kind, spirals of forgotten facts and questions never asked aloud. She looks up from the book, she's cradling like a kitten. "Oh," she says, "you got farther than most." You blink. Don't look so surprised. The castle lets in all sorts, but it rarely keeps them. She gestures for you to sit. The chair that slides under you is made of driftwood and whispers sea shanties. You're wondering why I'm here, why this place matters. You nod. She smiles without showing teeth. Good. Questions are currency here. She closes her book. There's an obscure tale from the Basque regions about a sorceress who built a tower so she could trap questions before they escaped into the wind. People would come and offer her apples or promises in exchange for truths. But the best questions, she leans forward, she kept for herself. You ask what happened to her. She forgot which answers were hers, the witch says softly. And which were the wind's? In the castle's own lore, which has begun to develop like moss on old stone, some say the Witch of the Waste was never just one woman, that she's a title passed on like a cursed crown or a poorly written song lyric. The real witch, some insist, still lives in the library, collecting questions the way others collect stamps. You eye her again. She eyes you back. You're here for Howl, she finally says. A statement, not a question. You say nothing. She snorts. You're not the first. You won't be the last. He's like a comet, bright, dramatic, and terrible at lasting impressions. You ask if she ever loved him. The pause is longer than the room. No, she lies. A scroll squeals and tumbles off a shelf, knocking into a small stack of weathered books. The witch sighs and picks one up. It opens on its own. She turns it toward you. The page reads, "To love a man whose heart is a door is to live forever waiting for the knock." You trace the sentence with your finger. The ink feels warm. You ask her if the castle can be understood. She laughs this time. Of course not. But that's not the point. Another legend, one barely recorded outside a footnote in an 1890s Irish folklore journal, speaks of a dwelling that exists only in the moment between decision and regret. A castle of questions, forever rebuilding itself based on the answers its guests refuse to give. This place feels like that. You ask the witch if she wants to leave. Her answer is a smile you don't quite understand. As you stand to go, she slips something into your coat pocket. "For the next door," she murmurs. You nod your thanks. Behind you, the books start humming a lullaby in reverse. You open the library door and find yourself back in the corridor, but it's shorter now. It ends in a single door, one you haven't seen before, one that waits. You reach into your pocket. The witch has given you a feather, green, still warm, no note, no instructions. The door sighs open, and inside is a room made of feathers, stars, and the sound of someone quietly weeping. The room embraces you like a sigh. Feathers drift from the ceiling, soft, silvery, not quite from birds. They glow faintly, like they remember being starlight. The walls aren't walls at all, but moving curtains made of velvet and dream stuff, stitched together with whispers. In the center of the room is a cradle, but not for a child. You step closer, and what lies in it is a heart. Not beating, not bloody, just a warm, pulsing thing wrapped in layers of ribbon and lace and spell thread. It floats gently above the cushion, humming a lullaby you can't quite remember, but that still makes your chest ache. This is Howl's heart, or maybe the piece he gave away. Some say he lost it willingly, offered it to a fire demon in exchange for power, for mystery, for flight. Others claim it was stolen, hidden inside a star that fell one night in March and shattered into 12 languages. You reach out, but the heart recoils slightly, sensing hesitation. It doesn't want to be touched. It wants to be understood. You sit beside it. Did you know, says a voice behind you, that the Welsh word for heart is callan? Sounds like call on, as if the heart is something you summon. You turn. It's Howl, not grand, not shimmering, just a man with ruffled hair, a teacup in one hand and a sock with a hole in the toe on the other. He flops down beside you and sighs. Bit awkward, isn't it? He says, gesturing to the floating heart, like running into your ex at a bookstore. You ask him why the heart is here. He shrugs. Because I left it. Because I lost it. Because Calcifer needed it. Pick one. He swirls the tea, which smells faintly of moonlight and dish soap. There's an old Korean folktale, he says, about a man who loved a star so much he swallowed it. Thought it would make him shine, but all it did was burn holes in his insides until he had nothing left but stories. You ask if that's what happened to him. Howl grins. Worse. I got attached. The heart pulses. I used to think I could be anyone, he says quietly. That's the danger of magic. You think because you can become anything, you don't have to stay as anyone. He looks at you, suddenly serious. But when you give away your heart, you have to trust that someone will hold it when you're not looking. A gust of wind stirs the curtains. The room seems to lean closer. Another tale, this one from the shadowed corners of Scottish folklore, tells of a castle that appears only to those who have forgotten who they are. Inside, it shows them every face they've ever worn and asks which one was real. Few can answer. Those who do never leave quite the same. You ask Hal why he runs. Because I'm good at it, he replies, smiling. Because it's easier than staying. Because if I stop, someone might ask me who I really am, and I'm not sure I'd like the answer. You ask if the castle is alive. He nods. Of course. And it's listening. Always listening. He leans back against a wall of feathers. It's kind in its way, gives you space to lie to yourself, then nudges you toward the truth when you least expect it. He gestures at the heart again. I could take it back, he muses, but then I'd have to feel everything. You ask what he feels now. Mostly, he says, hungry and a bit tired of being tragic. He stands. You want to see something? You nod. Hal lifts a corner of the curtain wall. Behind it, a staircase spirals upward, not stone, but folded paper. Each step inked with scribbled phrases in a dozen different hands. This way, he says. Time to meet the door. You hesitate. The heart glows brighter behind you. I'll be back for it. Hal murmurs. Maybe. Someday. You climb. The stairs sigh under your feet. Each step whispers something different. Tell her the name. Don't open it yet. You forgot the key. He still dreams of her. The higher you go, the thinner the air becomes. Light like silver dust, sharp like truth. At the top is a single door, wooden, plain, cracked with age. But something in the grain glows like firelight. Hal knocks once. It opens inward, and you both step through. The door swings open, not with a creak but with a sigh, a sound like a memory exhaling. You and Howl step into a room that doesn't sit still. It shifts around you, subtly rearranging itself based on your thoughts. You think of winter, and suddenly frost forms delicate scrollwork on the corners of the glass panes. You think of longing, and a chair rocks gently in an invisible breeze. This is the portal chamber, not a portal to somewhere, a portal of somewhere, a room of doors, each one leading to a different place, a different version of the world. The wooden floor is inlaid with a mosaic of symbols, runic, alchemical, ancient pictographs lost to any living tongue. It hums beneath your feet. Howl crosses to the far wall where 4 doors stand side by side. They used to be 5, he says, but one forgot where it led. He gestures at the colored knobs above each one: red, blue, green, and black. These are moods as much as maps, he explains. Places I go when I need to escape being myself. He turns the blue one. The door reveals a bustling seaside town. The cry of gulls, the scent of salt and smoke. Laughter from a window above a flower shop. Howl's Haven, he says, smiling wistfully. Nice place to be invisible. He shuts it and turns the green knob. A vast, rolling field appears. Cows grazing, distant bells, a sky as wide as silence. I only go there to nap, he says. The red door shows an empty hallway, flickering candles, and a mirror that reflects nothing. That one's personal. Then the black knob. He doesn't touch it, just looks at it. His eyes go distant. That one leads to the place I put the parts of myself I'm not ready to burn. You ask him what's on the other side. Versions of me, he replies. Ones that made different choices. There's an old Persian tale about a wizard who carried a castle in his pocket. Not a miniature, but a spell-folded version of his past, every regret tucked behind a door he dared not open. They say if you opened the wrong one, you'd be lost in your own memory forever. Howl turns to you. Want to try one? You hesitate. He opens a 5th door you hadn't noticed before, this one with no knob at all. It simply knows when someone is curious. It opens to a storm, but not a violent one. This storm is suspended in time. Raindrops hang motionless in the air. Lightning frozen mid, flash like shattered glass. A staircase winds up through the clouds, made of petrified driftwood. This is the dream corridor, Howl whispers. Where all the might have been's drift. You step forward. The moment you do, your thoughts ripple outward. The rain rearranges into shapes, faces, choices, forgotten birthdays, a letter you never sent. You climb. Each step carries you deeper into what could have been. You see yourself, versions of you in alternate paths. One tending a lighthouse, another studying runes by moonlight, one, remarkably, living inside a bookshop that's actually a beached whale in disguise. Doors don't just open, Howl says behind you. They remember. Every time you ask what if, a door is born. The wind changes. You hear a child's laughter. You see a version of Howl, much younger, sitting by a tree, laughing with a girl whose face shifts every time you blink. In one moment she has flame-colored hair. In the next, she's made of shadow and lilies. Then she's gone. That was her, Howl murmurs. I think. You don't ask who she was. He wouldn't know how to answer anyway. Instead, you notice something strange. At the center of the corridor, there's a mirror, unlike any other. It's not made of glass, but of still water suspended upright. When you look into it, you don't see yourself, you see the castle. But not as it is now, as it was. Roots instead of legs, wings instead of chimneys. It weeps stars and whispers lullabies. It knows you. You reach for the mirror. It ripples, and the door slams shut behind you. Now it's just you in the mirror. Some say the real inspiration for Howl's castle wasn't a place at all, but a metaphor. A construct of the psyche, each room a compartment of longing, repression, desire, memory. A literal house of identity, collapsing and rebuilding with each passing thought. Howl told you earlier, the castle listens, but maybe that was incomplete. The castle remembers. You touch the mirror, and suddenly you're back in the portal chamber. Howl is gone. Only Calcifer's flickering eye hovers nearby. He doesn't stay long in the inn between. The fire mutters. Can't stand echoes. You ask if you were meant to see all that. Calcifer shrugs. Meant to. Maybe not, but you needed to. You sit for a moment, heart racing quietly. You just walk through memories. Not yours. Not exactly, but close enough to matter. You wonder which door is yours, and you wonder if you'll ever open it. The castle's heartbeat slows. You feel it in the floorboards beneath you, in the breath of the wind curling around the eaves. The portal room fades behind as you climb a narrow stairwell, one that wasn't there yesterday, or even a moment ago. It spirals like the inside of a snail shell, steep and dark, smelling of beeswax, saltwater, and rosemary. At the top, a door with no handle, only a knocker in the shape of a lion's face, its eyes made of pressed amber. You hesitate. The lion winks, you knock. The door swings open, not out, not in, but sideways, like a curtain drawn across time. Inside, a library. Not your usual cozy shelf and tea setup, this one hums. The books shift like breathing scales, their spines rearranging when you glance away. Scrolls unfurl of their own accord. A quill scribbles in midair. A globe spins slowly, showing not Earth, but another place entirely, something with 3 moons and spiral seas. The room greets you with a hush, like a theater waiting for its cue. This is Howl's memory archive. I don't come here often, he says, emerging from behind a stack of books taller than most trees. It's where I keep the selves I forgot. You raise an eyebrow. He gestures to a floating tome that opens its pages on cue. Inside, you see a child, blonde, barefoot, singing to the stars. He wears a robe made of moth wings. The child looks up, and you feel that he's seen you. Some versions of me remember magic before I ever learned it. Howl murmurs. One obscure tale from Romanian folklore tells of the Ursator, fate-weaving spirits who visit children 3 days after birth. They whisper a path into the soul, not the future, but the story the child wants to live. Sometimes they gift the child with a word in a language that doesn't exist yet. Other times they leave behind an invisible key. Howl claims he was visited by something like that. Only they came before I was born, he says. Told me I'd be a door one day, not a person. A door. He laughs, still not sure what they meant. Around you the books rustle like trees in windless weather. He leads you to another corner of the room. A glass case sits here, fogged from the inside. He wipes it with his sleeve. Inside is a single page, burn around the edges. Ink faded, you lean in. It's a contract, not the one that binds Calcifer. Another older, signed in a looping script with ink that smells faintly of regret. No one remembers what this one was for, Howl says, but I still dream about the moment I signed it. He turns to you. You ever make a promise you don't understand until years later? Before you can answer, a strange tremble runs through the shelves. Books begin to slide from their places, not falling, not tossed. Summoned, they form a circle around you. Each cover glows faintly. One smells like snow on metal, another like tears and cinnamon. These are not books, not exactly. They're dreams, Howl says. Ones the castle caught before they disappeared. He lifts one gently. Here's a dream where you left your window open and the night climbed inside. He hands it to you. You open the cover and are no longer standing. You're falling, gently, through the pages of someone else's sleep. A dragon curls in the shape of a question mark. A woman spins yarn made of clouds. A staircase goes sideways into a meadow where clocks bloom like wildflowers. You land softly. The book closes your back, shaken, but not afraid. Most guests only handle one, Howl says, placing the dream book back into the circle. But the castle let you read that one. It likes you. He points at the books slowly reshelving themselves. You see, the castle's library isn't just for keeping records, it learns. Every person who enters leaves a trace behind, a syllable, a scent, a shadow. The stories don't just sit here. They grow. The scholars debate whether the concept of a living library originated in the myth of Alexandria's II secret vault, one said to house books that write themselves based on the reader's soul. Some believe this idea influenced Jones's version of the castle. Others say it came from an older, more unsettling place, an Irish legend about the Book of Unwritten Fates, a tome that adds a name only once the person has been truly seen. Howl waves a hand. The room flickers. You see, for just a second, your own name glowing on a spine. Then it's gone. Don't look too closely, Howl says. That one still writing itself. You feel the walls pulse gently, like a heartbeat. The castle is still watching, still remembering. You ask Howl what happens to the stories no one reads. He shrugs. They become doors. Then, quietly, more ghosts. You follow Howl back down the staircase, which now winds in the opposite direction, less like it's descending and more like it's unraveling from within. The walls around you shimmer faintly, stitched together with whispers and dust. Somewhere, a grandfather clock tolls a time that doesn't exist on any earthly watch. You pause before the next corridor. It wasn't there before. At least you don't think it was. It slopes downward like a tongue in a sleeping mouth, warm and eerie. You take a breath and step forward. The hall is lined with mirrors. Each one reflects a version of you, but none quite match. One wears a crown of feathers. Another blinks with cat eyes. A third version stares back with a knowing smile and a burn mark shaped like a comet down one arm. The mirrors don't echo your movements. They watch. Howl doesn't come down here much, says a voice beside you. Not Howl's, softer, older. You turn to find a woman in a robe stitched with star maps. She carries a lantern filled with what looks like moonlight and old snow. Her hair floats slightly, like she's always underwater. I'm the castle's archivist, she says. I tend to its forgotten selves, but she gestures to the mirrors. These are moments the castle lived, but hasn't decided how to remember. You ask if that means the castle is alive. She shrugs. More alive than some people. The one obscure Icelandic myth speaks of the Dramasaw, or dream halls, structures said to form from the collective memory of every being who ever dreamed in the same place. These halls were believed to shift shape depending on who walked them, reflecting possible pasts and futures. No one could enter without first losing something small, a button, a name, a heartbeat. Howl's castle may be one of these places. You pause before one mirror. Inside, you see yourself speaking to Calcifer, but in this version, you're the fire, a flickering tongue of energy with eyes like cracked sapphires. The reflection grins. Don't worry, says the archivist. That one's not likely. You glance over at her, and for just a moment her own reflection is gone. Only the lantern floats in her place. She continues walking. The corridor begins to open into a chamber, round, domed, echoing like a forgotten planetarium. The ceiling pulses with stars that aren't constellations but memories. You realize each glimmer is a scene you've already walked through. There's the moment you open Calcifer's door. The moment the castle first groaned beneath your feet. The fire that whispered your name. In the center of the room stands a wardrobe old, carved from dark wood, keys in every drawer. Howl appears again, suddenly serious. This is where we store what we're not ready to remember, he says. I rarely open it. He grips the handle. It resists him slightly, like a sleeping animal reluctant to stir. Then it clicks. The door swings open, revealing a long black coat. At first glance, it's just clothing, but it hums, quietly, like distant thunder under silk. Inside the coat, a dozen pockets shimmer with movement. One holds a folded map that shifts even while still. Another contains a tooth made of ice. A third a vial of something that looks like melted clock hands. This is my walking self, Howl says, almost shy. The one that goes when I can't. You don't quite understand. He turns the coat inside out. For a split second, you see everywhere at once. Deserts, oceans, the space between rain, a forest made entirely of doorways. Then it folds again, neat as a napkin. It's one of the castle's deeper magics, the archivist murmurs. It remembers journeys that haven't happened yet. The folklore scholars point to an obscure Polish story about the Piasis Widzasai, a seeing cloak worn by a wandering witch who knew the secrets of those she passed simply by the weight of their footprints. Some say this tale may have inspired the concept of magical garments in Jones's writing, but others argue it's far older, possibly descended from Babylonian myths of stars wearing robes to cross between heavens. Howl hands the coat to you. Hold it. he says. You'll know if it likes you. You grasp the fabric. It's lighter than it should be, cold and warm all at once. It smells like old ink and wind through apple trees. For a second, just a heartbeat, you see yourself walking away in it. Then the vision vanishes. Howl laughs. It didn't bite. That's a good sign. You hand the coat back. He folds it and returns it to the wardrobe. The archivist steps forward and closes the doors. The mirrors behind you ripple. One last shimmer of not quite realities settling into silence. Howl's castle isn't just a home, she says softly. It's a keeper. Of paths not taken, of stories paused, of selves worn thin and rewoven. You look once more into the nearest mirror. This time it shows only the hallway behind you. Empty. No more reflections. Just the castle breathing, waiting. You wake, though you're not sure when you fell asleep. You're in a room shaped like a clock face, lying on a divan that smells faintly of lemon balm and old spells. Around you, 12 arched windows, each framing a different sky. One burns with sunset, another floats in moonlight. One is snowing gently. Another flickers with a violet storm on the horizon. Calcifer floats beside you in a teacup. He gives you a look like you've disappointed him simply by being unconscious. You dream too loudly, he says. You sit up. Your limbs feel a little longer, as if dreams had tugged on your bones during the night. The castle hums beneath you, a soft purring like a cat dreaming of dragons. From behind one of the windows, you hear music, a waltz played on glass instruments. Come on, says Calcifer. It's festival night, but you blink. What festival? All of them, he replies. You step into a hallway that now looks like a parade route. Ribbons hang from the ceiling. Shadows dance along the walls like paper cutouts, fluttering with invisible wind. You pass a window that shows only fireworks, silent, golden, blooming like ghost flowers. Festival night, it turns out, is the one night the castle opens every door at once. In the dining hall, the long table is set for dozens. Bread that never goes stale, butter that hums lullabies, a punch bowl that refills itself with your favorite drink, even if you've never tasted it before. You pass guests in masks shaped like birds, foxes, clouds. One nods at you politely, and you're sure you see Howl dance by in a coat made of starlight, leading a partner made of smoke. Don't stare, Calcifer mutters. That's his dreaming self. He gets weirder every year. An old Scottish legend tells of the Semaine Hollow, a castle that only appears on the night between seasons. Inside, all your past selves hold a feast. You may visit, but only once, and only if you bring no regrets. Some say the tale originated in borderland druidic rites. Others insist it was an allegory for memory itself. Folklorists have speculated that this legend may have informed Howl's own castle, with its ability to house different temporal selves, doorways into maybes, and timelines folded like linens in an old armoire. Here, though, the myth is living. You wander into the garden, which now grows upside down. Flowers bloom from the ceiling. Lanterns drift like jellyfish above a lake of ink, where stars bob lazily. A woman paints with her fingertips, dragging constellations into the pond. First time at festival, she asks, not looking at you. You nod. Don't worry. It's mostly harmless. Just don't eat the oranges. You glance at the fruit bowl nearby. The oranges shimmer faintly, pulsing like tiny hearts. What happens if... They remember too much, she says, finally turning to you. Her eyes are silver coins. Not all memories are yours to keep. She tosses a pebble into the ink lake. Instead of a splash, there's a gasp, like the breath of a dream startled awake. Then, as suddenly as it began, the festival begins to fold back in on itself. Guests vanish like candle smoke. The waltz slows. The windows dim. You're left standing beside Calcifer, who is now snuggled into a hollowed, out-bread roll. Time to go, he says, crumbs in his flames. But I just got here, you whisper. That's the thing about festival night, he yawns. It only ever happens in the middle of the story, never at the end. You walk the halls again. This time they're narrower, older, dustier. The lights flicker like they're remembering fireflies. At the end of one corridor is a door you haven't seen before. It's plain wood, but humming softly. You place your hand on it, and it feels like a question. Do I open it? Calcifer looks up from his bread roll bed. Do you want the truth? You pause. About what? He shrugs, already turning to embers. Does it matter? You push open the door. Inside is silence. A room made entirely of parchment, walls of folded stories, a ceiling stitched from unfinished poems, a floor that sighs when you step, and in the center a quill suspended in midair. It turns toward you. This room, you understand, is not part of the castle. It is the castle. The blueprint, the beating heart, the place where it writes itself forward, word by enchanted word. You realize now that every choice, every turn you took, has been inked here behind you, and yet the pages ahead are blank. Howl enters behind you, quiet for once. It lets you write here. Sometimes, he says, but only if you're not trying to. He gestures toward the quill. Ask it something. You step forward. The air around you stills, like the pause between lightning and thunder. You whisper a question you didn't know you were holding. The quill hesitates and begins to write. The words curve, soft and strange, wrapping into themselves like dream threads. To find the castle's final door, you must first unlock your own. You read it aloud. Howl smiles faintly. Better than mine. I once got by more eggs. The parchment room begins to dissolve. Sheets lift and flutter around you like moths, carrying stories away into unseen shelves. Calcifer floats beside you, glowing brighter now. It's almost time, he says. For what? For the last door. You step back into the hall, feeling the castle exhale again. It's quieter now, almost like it's waiting. The corridor stretches longer now, as if giving you room to breathe. Or second guess. You walk slowly. Each step echoes with a different footfall, sometimes yours, sometimes someone else's. The light grows thinner, taking on a bluish hue, like the hour before dawn when even the shadows hold their breath. At the end of the hallway, a single door waits. It's unlike any you've seen in the castle so far. Not ornate, not hidden, just final. Its surface is smooth, pale wood, no handle, no lock. Only a small symbol, barely visible, a spiral within a spiral, like a galaxy drawn by a dreaming child. Calcifer hovers beside you, flickering nervously. You don't have to open it, he says, but I showed. Calcifer sighs. Every guest does eventually. Doesn't mean they all like what's on the other side. You tilt your head. What's there? No one ever remembers clearly. Some say it's where the castle ends. Others say it's where it begins. He floats in front of the door now, his flames dimming to a quiet pulse. Some think it's Howl's heart. Howl gave away his heart, you whisper. Calcifer gives a little smile. And yet, something keeps beating. A Romanian folktale tells of the house at the edge of morning, a place that appears only to those who've nearly died or nearly lived. Inside, a final choice waits. If you open the last door, you might become something else. If you don't, you forget the house ever existed. It's said that those who remember it speak in riddles and never dream the same way again. Some believe this tale came from old initiation rites, thresholds between youth and wisdom, self and story. Others argue it's just a poetic metaphor that grew feet and wandered into folktale. You reach out and touch the door. It's warm, like skin, like memory. No handle, no lock, just willingness. You press gently, and it swings open without resistance. Inside, you find a room filled with versions of yourself. Not mirrors, not illusions, you. One is younger, curled up on the floor with a book, mouthing the words. Another older, stooped but smiling, planting something in a pot labeled hope. One dances clumsily. One cries into their hands. One stares out a window that isn't there. You step inside. They look up. None seem surprised. It's not a room of judgment. It's a room of truth. You walk among them. They nod as you pass. You feel their weight, your weight. All the moments you carried, all the choices you buried, all the selves you almost became, and in the center of them all a chair you sit. For a moment, everything is still. Then, gently the castle begins to fold, not in a violent way, more like a book being closed after a long read. The walls lean in, the windows fade to mist, the hallway shortens, becoming a corridor of memory instead of brick. The castle isn't collapsing, it's remembering itself. The versions of you begin to dissolve, not in pain, like steam returning to sky. Calcifer floats beside the chair. This is the last moment. Do I leave? Calcifer shrugs. You always do. But sometimes, you come back. A door appears behind you, round like the full moon. It opens onto a field you recognize, not with your mind, but with your soul. A hill you climbed as a child, a tree that only exists in the corner of your memory, a sky that feels like home. You turn to Calcifer. Will I remember? He smiles, his flames flickering gold and green. You'll remember what matters. You step through. The grass is cool beneath your feet. The wind smells like cinnamon and possibility. Above, the stars begin to shimmer into place, as if reintroducing themselves. Behind you, the castle lets out a final exhale. You look back, but there's nothing there now, just open sky and the whisper of stories settling into silence, and far off, a faint, familiar voice. Don't forget the oranges. You laugh, quietly, wonderfully. In that moment, you realize the castle was never really a place. It was a way of seeing, and maybe, just maybe, you'll see like this again. The world outside the castle feels impossibly wide. You stand on a hill now, familiar but not. The wind slips through your fingers like the tail end of a dream, and for the first time in what feels like centuries, or maybe just a very long blink, you breathe without borrowed air. The castle is gone, or rather, it's hiding, somewhere. Folklore speaks often of places that vanish at dawn, the lost city of Wise swallowed by the sea, Brigadoon wrapped in Scottish mist, appearing once every 100 years. There's even an old Inuit tale of a drifting village on the ice that only surfaces when someone is ready to change. Maybe the castle joins their ranks, its chimneys added to a skyline stitched from impossible places. You walk toward the horizon, the sky now streaked with rose and deep violet. But something pulls you to turn one last time, and there it is. Just a flicker, a brief shimmer, a shadow against the dawn. The castle hasn't gone, it's simply waiting for the next dreamer, the next stray soul who needs a place not bound by time or space or logic, just longing. Back in your pocket, something jingles faintly. You pull it out, a small, rusted key. Where it came from, you don't know, but it's warm in your palm, and it hums faintly with a tune you didn't know you remembered. Maybe it's a token, or maybe it's a promise. You tuck it away, not for safekeeping, but for remembering. Somewhere inside the castle, maybe in that impossible upstairs room, maybe behind a door that always changes color, Howl sits at a cluttered desk. He's scribbling spells in a journal that leaks stardust. His coat hangs off the back of his chair, swaying as if the air is still moving. Calcifer grumbles at his side, frying an egg without cracking it. They don't notice you're gone, or maybe they do, and they simply trust you'll return. In another tale, told by fishermen on the coast of Galicia, there's mention of a ship made of cloud and moonlight, captained by a man with hair the color of raven feathers and eyes like bottled storms. They say his ship never docks, only sails between worlds, picking up those who've lost their way. Some think that man is Howl. Others argue he's just the sea's favorite lie. But the debate continues, as it always will. Historians still can't agree whether the moving castle was inspired more by the Welsh myths of Tylwyth Teg, the fair folk who shift their hills and homes, or the architectural symbolism in German alchemical texts, where buildings represent the body, ever transforming, ever consuming. Theories pile like spell books, and like the castle itself, none are ever in the same place twice. You reach the base of the hill. The morning air is thick with dew and birdsong. Your feet find familiar paths. Your body still tingles with the memory of floating staircases and doors that argued with reality. You're not the same. Not entirely. Something of the castle walks with you. You notice the way the shadows lean kindly now, how the breeze sometimes answers unspoken questions, how every now and then a door creaks in your own home in just the right way, and you pause, hoping. There's one last tale whispered in the Canary Islands about a woman who lived inside a cloud. She'd appear at crossroads and offer travelers a choice: turn back or take the foggy path. Those who chose fog often vanished, but those who returned could never quite explain where they'd been. Only that they now slept better at night. Maybe that's you now. Someone who once lived in the fog for a little while. The horizon opens wide. Your next step doesn't feel final. It feels beginning-like. And if you dream tonight, and you will, you might catch the scent of parchment, soot, and oranges. You might hear Calcifer's sleepy grumble. You might even glimpse a dark coat trailing around a corner, just out of reach. And you'll smile, because once you've wandered the whispers of the unseen, you never walk quite the same again. So now the castle's doors are closed, its windows dim, the hearth flickers low, the whispers quiet. The wild magic that curled like ivy through its every wall settles back into slumber. You've stepped out, but some part of you lingers, wandering in those folding staircases, leaning out the window of a room that isn't supposed to exist, tracing runes in the dust on a floorboard that never creaks twice the same way. The castle fades, but it doesn't vanish. Not really, because now it lives inside you. In the way you tilt your head when a breeze carries a scent that doesn't belong. In the way your eyes linger on cracks between buildings, wondering what might be hiding just beyond sight. Somewhere Calcifer yawns and dims. Somewhere Howl turns a page. Somewhere a castle made of wishes, wanderlust, and whispered secrets reshapes itself for the next visitor. And somewhere, not far, you stir beneath your blankets, your breath slowing, your limbs heavy and warm. The world quiets. The story ends, not with a bang, not even with a whisper, but with a gentle hush. Let it wrap around you like a worn quilt. Let your dreams find doors that lead to unexpected places. Let the last of the castle's magic tuck you in. The stars outside your window blink slowly, sleepily. The castle's whispers fade to dreams. Good night, traveler.